Hey, it's Lara back with your weekly astrology forecast and your horoscope for all 12 signs. So this one is for the week of September 15th to the 21st, 2021. Thanks for being here. We have the moon in Capricorn right now, and moon in Capricorn is a good time for kind of, taking care of things, taking care of business, so to speak. It's a good time to not be led around by our emotions. It's a time where we can be a little bit more pragmatic and practical. Once the moon moves out of Capricorn, she will move into Aquarius on Thursday, and then Pisces on Saturday afternoon. And on Monday, the moon will still be in Pisces, and we will have a full moon in Pisces on Monday night. So, and then she'll move off into Aries. But the crux of this video will be about that full moon in Pisces that's happening on the 20th of September. So stick around to find out how that is going to impact all of us and you specifically. But before we get there, I just want to draw your attention to a couple of other things that are happening as well this week prior to that full moon. And speaking of moons, if you're interested in learning a little bit more about working with the moon and what the moon in different signs lends well to and that sort of thing, you can download my free guide to working with the moon over at my website, which is astrologymaven.com. And if you type that in, if you go to astrologymaven.com, and I'll put the link below, you'll end up at a landing page. And you just put your first name and your email in, and you will get the downloads straight to your inbox. And you will also get informed of when my new site launches, which has been a lot longer in the making than I anticipated. But I now have my site set on a potential date. I'm not going to give that away just yet because, I just want to play my cards close to my chest right now, because I've said it's coming soon a whack of times, and for various reasons that hasn't happened. So stay tuned anyways, and go over there and grab that guide if you haven't yet. So what do I want to talk about before we get to talking about that Pisces full moon that's happening on the 20th? Well, one thing that I didn't talk about in last week's video, because in last week's video, if you recall, or if you watched it, we spoke about Venus moving into Scorpio, right? And what that might feel like for each of us as Venus moves into Scorpio, where she's not super comfortable, right? But we didn't touch on what Mars is doing. So Mars, as of the time of me putting this video out, has just entered on the 14th of September 2021, just entering Libra, leaving Virgo and moving into Libra, where just like Venus over in Scorpio, Mars will be in what we call detriment. So in uncomfortable territory for the next little while. I didn't mention this last week, so I want to give you a note about it here. When Mars is in Libra and Venus is in Scorpio, they're both in the signs of their detriment, like I mentioned. So they're out of their comfort zone, right? Think of it like being in uncomfortable territory. They're kind of like, when I was thinking about this, it made me think of the there's a Christmas movie called The Holiday, if you've ever seen it. I think it's called The Holiday, and it's a really good flick. I happen to like it anyways. It's one of those ones we pretty much watch every year. And I think it has, what's his name? Jude Law and Cameron Diaz are in it. And I can't even remember. For a movie that I watch every year, you'd think that information would stick in my head, but it doesn't. So too many other things in there. But the point is that these two women kind of do this like house swap, right? This house exchange. And so, and they enter very different territory than what they're used to. So what happens when a planet is in another planet's house, so to speak, right? Is that they have to kind of use the tools that are available to them, right? When you're at home, you've got, the things you need to do what you need to do. You're used to like the kitchen layout, you know where the forks and knives are, all this kind of thing, right? You know where the cutlery drawer is. You're comfortable with the decor, even though, you may want to tweak things here and there, but in general, it's familiar territory. So when you're like, if you've ever gone to an Airbnb, for example, and you're kind of staying in somebody else's space, it can feel a bit weird. You don't know where things are. It might not be decorated as you would do it yourself, these sorts of things. And so it takes some getting used to, right? But on the sort of bright side, it's a new experience, and it can allow you to shift your perspective a little bit. So that's kind of what's going on right now with Venus and Mars. Venus will move out of Scorpio on October 7th, and Mars will move out of Libra on October 30th. So, but until then, they're both in each other's homes. And what is good about this, like I said, is that it can, even though it can feel a bit uncomfortable and territory we're not used to, it can allow us to shift our perspective a little bit and think outside the box, right? And it can be good energy for sort of problem solving. So think of it that way. But specifically, because we covered Venus last week quite a bit, but Mars and Libra, when I think about this, right? Libra is an air sign. Mars is this energy that's like, it can inflame things. It's heated, it's charged. And so it's kind of like, I thought, like, the phrase that came to mind when I was thinking about this is full of hot air, right? So now what I mean by that is, like, when with this energy, we can feel kind of like our ideas, our thoughts, our minds, these are all air qualities, right? Our communications can be a bit like heated or inflamed. We have a federal election looming here, and with everything else going on, we're seeing that happen, as it does when there's a lead up to an election, right? So there can be that kind of thing, but there can be also kind of like, we can vacillate in terms of like what action to take as well, right? Mars is that action. Libra is this energy of like, it could go either way. It could, it sees both sides, that kind of thing. Libra can be sort of the people pleaser in terms of saying what people want to hear, but not really meaning it sometimes. Or there can be difficulty making a decision. Libra just craves harmony and balance and peace, and moderation and these sorts of things. And Mars kind of stirs the pot there a little bit. So it can feel a little uncomfortable. We can see like arguments even, heated debates, but they can also, there is this sense of like balance and justice there too, because it's happening in Libra. But overall, like, I think that we can feel a sense of sort of almost mental inflammation. Again, it's an air sign, right? And trying to reconcile two opposing sides, right? And that can be two opposing thoughts, feelings, people, political ideologies, whatever sort of thing. So that's the energy that's in the air in terms of what Mars is doing right now, until the end of October. So I wanted to tweak you to that. And a couple of other quick things. On the 16th, so Thursday, the sun still in Virgo at the time is in a trining Pluto. So Pluto in Capricorn at 24 degrees. And I hesitate. Sorry, I just want to circle back for a quick second and tell you a quick story. This is reminding me of something. So I have maligned my my Saturn-Venus conjunction that I have in Aries, right? And this Pluto, where Pluto is sitting in the chart, it's just been this long, slow burn going on because it's squaring my natal Saturn-Venus conjunction. But the other night before last, I had an absolutely horrendous night. I'll spare you all the details, but the long and the short of it is, I'm normally a person who falls asleep rather quickly. And then I wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning and can't get back to sleep, but fall asleep pretty quickly. The other night, I could not get to sleep. I started having a lot of anxiety. I went into full-blown panic attack mode. Which hasn't happened to me in a very long time, to that degree. My mind was racing. It was full of, scary thoughts, and all of this kind of stuff. It was really distressing, actually. And so, the next day, I took a look at my my personal ephemeris, right? I've showed you this before. I use these Honeycomb Collective personal almanacs. I've showed you this before. I think this is invaluable to me. I will never not order it. And so, anyway, I don't get paid to say that. I wish I did, but I don't. It's a really amazing tool. And so when I was taking a look, I was like, oh yeah, Mars just was going over my natal Pluto, because I have Pluto in Virgo. And Mars, it's right at the end of Virgo. It's at 28 degrees. And so Mars just moving over that spot in my chart, and this constant sort of inflammation of Pluto squaring my natal Saturn Venus. But anyway, so it was an example of, I've heard Chris Brennan using this, the phrase astrology good. I think there's a hashtag going around on Twitter or something, which I'm not on. I was on. I axed my Twitter account a couple of years ago because I didn't really have any use for it, and I keep thinking that I will probably re-enter Twitter territory, because there's a lot of conversation that goes on there that I'd like to be a part of. But I digress. Point is, there's this hashtag going around called, I think it's astrology good, basically meaning that even when crappy things happen, astrologers have this perspective of, wow, that's really interesting, right? And so that's kind of what happened for me. It was like the experience itself sucked really, really bad, but it allowed me to just validate astrology works. I don't I am a scientifically minded person. I am, for the record, double vaxxed. I wear a mask everywhere I go. I am, I walk this line of well, I'm a Virgo rising Pisces sun, right? Of practical magic kind of thing. And so, I know a lot of very scientifically minded people that I know are quite skeptical about astrology and probably see this, what I do as kind of woo-woo. And I suppose it is in some ways, but it works, right? And we don't exactly know why that's so, but it does. And so that's an example of how astrology reflects real life, of as above, so below, right? And I'm not implying, and I think it's really important actually for me to say this, I am not implying that what's going on in the sky, I'm not implying that Mars moving over my natal Pluto caused that to happen, me to have a panic attack in the middle of the night and think terrifying thoughts. It's correlated in some way. There's a correlation there. It's a reflection. It's an oracle. It's a, it is, well, I mean, it's that notion of what's going on in the sky is reflected here on Earth in our personal experience, right? And so I wanted to share that with you. So, and talking about the Sun trining Pluto, because that's happening at 24 degrees of Virgo and Capricorn, reminded me of that. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about that piece. A trine is a harmonious interaction between planets. And in this case, the Sun in a harmonious or flowing, sort of uplifting conversation with Pluto, the Lord of the underworld, is the phrase that comes to mind is willpower when I think about this. It's like our highest intentions, our ideal vision, our life force, right, which is the Sun, working in harmony with our power, which is Pluto, just to distill it down. It's a recipe. I see this aspect as kind of like it's a recipe for charisma, right? Some people that have Sun trine Pluto in their charts are charismatic. And depending on what else is going on in their charts, that can be for better or worse. But, it's that idea of charisma. It's this idea that deep digging, which Pluto likes to do, can lead to an illumination, right? The Sun. It's like the light of the Sun being brought to the depths of the underworld to kind of unveil or reveal something, some sort of hidden big T truth. So that's what's going on with that aspect. And there's something about this aspect that I feel is leading us into the full moon. There's, in some ways, the vibe is similar. I just realized my heat had kicked on, so you probably heard that, and I hope it's not drowning out my voice. I'm not using my microphone right now, but now that it is indoor heating season around here, maybe I'm going to have to start doing that. Okay, excuse me. So that's Sun trine Pluto. And then the last quick thing I want to mention before we dive into the full moon in Pisces is that we've got Venus squaring Saturn on the 17th, which is Friday. So this, just to say something really, really quick about it, is we got Venus at 7 degrees Scorpio and Saturn at 7 degrees Aquarius, right? Those two fixed signs. So, and a square is a conversation of tension. So this can be, these two energies in this kind of conversation can bring about like tension or friction in our relationships in some way, or around our resources potentially in some way. There can be something that we need to act on, because squares generally require some kind of action to resolve the tension. So something we need to act on to resolve any tension that arises. And this can even be like tension between our desires, right? Venus, what brings us pleasure, and our responsibilities, right? The adulting stuff that we have to do, which is Saturn. So that's what's going on there. Just a little bit of a heads up about that. Next week, we're going to talk about the equinox, which is on the 22nd, and Mercury retrograde. So if you want to know about that, then come back and have a listen to that. So let's dive into the Pisces full moon, which is happening on the 20th of September at around 7:55 p.m. Eastern time. That's my time zone, so that's what I use. You can adjust accordingly. At 28 degrees of Pisces. So the moon will be at 28 degrees of Pisces, and the sun will be across the sky in Virgo at 28 degrees, because at all full moons, that's what happens. The sun and the moon are opposite each other in the sky, right? And they sort of face off, or it's the sun illuminates the face of the moon completely. And there is a sense of unveiling or revealing that which has been, kept in the dark kind of thing. And in some ways, this is what I was talking about. Like, it's a similar vibe to the sun trine Pluto. And there's another reason for that too that I'll get to in a minute. So I have just a little something I want to read to you from this little book that I got in my stocking last Christmas, which is called Moon Lore. So you can see the title there, Moon Lore, Lunar Themes of Wisdom and Magic by Elizabeth Pepper. It's just a tiny little book, but it's packed with a lot of really interesting little information and anecdotes and stuff. And there's this little paragraph on the sun and the moon. And I thought it would be appropriate to read this to you as a sort of piece to reflect on, right? So here we go. The simple fact that our planet has a single moon to light the night and one sun to warm our day has surely led to human conceptions of duality, right? Duality. What if human life had developed on Venus with no moon at all? Or perhaps Mars with 2 tiny satellites, Saturn with 9, Jupiter with 12. What themes and philosophies would evolve under such circumstances? Here on Earth, we look to the moon and sun for inspiration and find duality. Forms recognized as male and female, good and evil, certainty and chance, instinct and reason. And I would add to that yin and yang and a few other things, have been dramatized in spiritual thought and the arts from the beginning of recorded time. And through these expressions, we understand that all things involve their opposites and ultimately form one whole. And that is, I think, a really important piece, right? There's this notion of duality, but that duality, in some ways, is a bit of an illusion, right? Ultimately, as the passage says, all things involve their opposites and ultimately form one whole. So anyways, I've been reflecting on this concept a lot lately, and I recently started reading Martha Beck's new book, The Way of Integrity, and that's had me, it's one of those things, it's exactly what I needed right now at this moment in time. So I wanted to share that with you. I also want to show you the chart real quick before we talk a little bit further. So here's the chart for this full moon. Here we have the moon over in Pisces at 28 degrees and the sun opposite that at 28 degrees of Virgo, right? So sun and the moon opposite each other as always at a full moon. You can also notice that Neptune is quite close to the moon here at 21 degrees of Pisces, and Mars is pretty close to the sun at 3 degrees of Libra in a different sign, but still pretty close. There's also some other aspects going on in the chart. There's that Pluto trining the sun. It will have started waning by that time, but there it is nonetheless. And we've got Venus here in Scorpio opposing Uranus and Taurus. But the thing I really, really, really want to draw your attention to, aside from sun opposite moon, is we have Jupiter here at 23 degrees of Aquarius, and we have Mercury at 23 degrees of Libra, 2 air signs. These 2 planets are trining each other exactly at the time of the full moon. And it just so happens that those are the 2 ruling planets of this lunation, right? So there are a few notable aspects that I showed you, but really the most notable is the fact that at the time of this full moon, like I just showed you, the rulers of the full moon are in an exact trine. So we've got the ruler of the moon, in this case, is Jupiter, right? Jupiter rules Pisces. The co-ruler or planet, and the outer planet that has an affinity to Pisces is Neptune, which is in Pisces sign right now and pretty close to the moon as well. amplifying that energy kind of thing. And then the sun is over in Virgo, and the ruler of Virgo is Mercury. Mercury and Jupiter are trining each other, like I showed you on the chart, and they are in an exact trine. So the closer the aspect, the more potent, right? And so that aspect, even though it's not, you know, Jupiter and Mercury are not in trine with the sun and the moon. They are in trine with each other, but they are the rulers of the lunation. And so it's always really important and telling to look at what the rulers are doing. So there is, first of all, Libra and Aquarius are air signs. I already mentioned this, and they are trining each other. Trines are an aspect that are of a similar nature to Jupiter, right? Which is buoyant and uplifting and helpful. So I just talked about the trine to, you know, between the sun and Pluto. And so bringing about potentially some sort of illumination of sorts. And I see this full moon as having that potential. It has this revelatory flavor to it, as I see it. I was really, you know, thinking about and feeling into kind of what the nature of this full moon is. And it's like this image of, I don't know if you've ever seen a lanternfish, but it's one of those strange looking oddities that lives deep, deep, deep down in the ocean. You know, and it's got this thing like hanging off its head that's like a light. It's illuminating the darkness. And, you know, when that happens, when you shine a light on something that is normally in the dark, it reveals its secrets to you, right? Or there can be some interesting things revealed. And so there's this, I mean, of course it's a full moon. All full moons have that potential of illuminating something. But there is something about this full moon that I feel is a real, is amplifying that in some way. You know, full moons can be about things like release, culmination, the bearing of fruit, a crisis point, right? A turning point, some sort of emotional catharsis. Our emotions rise to the surface at the time of a full moon, and you'll hear stories of, you know, healthcare workers and people that work in emergency services, teachers. I used to be a teacher, a classroom teacher, and I can tell you that, you know, around full moons, you could expect some interesting developments, and kids, you know, emotions were running high often. So that happens. And so, and particularly when we're talking Pisces, which is a sign that is very sensitive and porous and empathetic, compassionate, lacking boundaries, right? Which can sometimes be something that is to our detriment. Not having those boundaries. But so it can be a really sensitive, emotionally sensitive full moon when we have the moon in Pisces. It can be dreamy and imaginative, and magical as well. And to that, you know, to that point, this is happening. This full moon is happening on this axis of what I call practical magic, meaning Virgo, the practical, right? Virgo is an earth sign. Virgo is hands-on. Virgo likes to be of sacred service. Virgo is attention to detail. Demetra George, in her book called Astrology and the Authentic Self, she refers to Virgo as the need to analyze, discriminate, and function efficiently, right? There's an impetus towards that Virgo has. While Pisces, she refers to Pisces as the need to commit to a dream or an ideal. So if you put those two energies together, right, are analyzing and are need to kind of function efficiently, and our drive to separate the wheat from the chaff and to improve things, and all those Virgo tendencies can illuminate our commitment to a dream or an ideal. So if you're using, I'm using those the meanings that Demetra George gives Pisces and Virgo in this particular book. So Pisces Virgo is this axis of practical magic, right? Of order, which is the Virgo piece, versus chaos, which is the Pisces piece, right? Of like, when I say chaos, that chaos doesn't have to be a bad thing. It means lack of order. Is lack of order always bad? Well, sometimes things need to be disordered so that sometimes things need to be not all lined up. Pisces is not linear, let's put it that way, right? So that's what I mean when I say chaos. This is also the axis that speaks to our health in many ways. The connection between mind, body, and spirit, right? The health in our physical kind of incarnation, and our mental and spiritual health. So that's part of what defines this axis as well. So together, there's this marriage of the spiritual and the mundane when we put Pisces and Virgo together. And I'll take you back to something I've been talking about a lot lately. It's this idea of the enchantment of everyday life, right? Bringing meaning to our daily work. This sense that our daily lives have a greater purpose. When Virgo and Pisces are working in cooperation together, when they can see each other, right, clearly, which is what's happening at a full moon, then it has the potential to bring out the best in both. Opposition, sun and the moon opposite each other, can feel like facing off. There's a need to bring about balance, to bring about compromise, to bring things to opposite sides of the spectrum, or two sides of the same coin, if you will, together, kind of thing. So it's that sort of energy. And with Mercury and Jupiter in a trine with each other, right, the rulers of this lunation, like I mentioned, Mercury is put, to boil it down to one word, the mind. Jupiter is this concept of expansion. Mercury is the messenger. Jupiter is the sage. So there is this potential for mind expansion, for uplifting and optimistic, right, which is that Jupiter, for buoyant, that sense of buoyancy in our thoughts and our ideas and our communications. This can be positive news or information that's received or exchanged in some way. And, a word of caution, it can be grandiose ideas that need some grounding, right? That hopefully Virgo, that earth sign, will bring to the table. But Mercury trine Jupiter can have that effect of being kind of like delusions of grandeur a little bit, but ultimately it is a really uplifting kind of energy. So that's not to say there are not other things going on in the chart that can bring us a little back down to earth, but in general, this seems to be like I said, a real revelatory full moon. That sense of things that you never maybe saw quite clearly before being revealed. I want to remind you too that like Jupiter's retrograde, Neptune's retrograde, Mercury is in retrograde territory, has not stationed retrograde yet, but will soon enough, before the end of September. And so this could be more of an internal process that's going on, or something that's being worked out in sort of a less public forum. It may be almost this sense of like inner illumination, right? I know there's a lot of that going on for me personally these days. And it's a bit exhausting. You know, I'm feeling that tension of Venus in Libra being Venus being in uncomfortable territory in Scorpio, and Mars about to do the same in Libra. But ultimately, we need tension and friction and opposition to work out our problems, right? To get clarity. Like, if we're never willing to entertain the opposite side, we live a one-dimensional kind of life. We live in a bubble. We don't see things. We don't see the whole picture, right? We bury our heads in the sand. We see things only as we want to see them, not as they truly are. And so in some ways, I feel like this full moon can allow us to see things as they truly are. And ultimately, that's a positive thing, right? So let's take it through the signs now. And I hope this wasn't too much of a meandering, jabbering, conversation. But what I want you to think about when we take it through the signs here is this notion of, this is a full moon. Oh, I think I forgot to mention to you, actually, it's kind of important. This new moon is a culmination of not only the last kind of 2 weeks, this full moon, since the last new moon that we had. So, you can think back a couple of weeks and think about like what got off the ground then, what's kind of reaching a next, what's leveling up, what's coming to pass, what's potentially bearing fruit, that kind of thing since 2 weeks ago. But also, and I think more, long range, and more importantly, what transpired, what was initiated at the new moon in Pisces on the 13th of March, 2021. So around that time, think back to around mid-March of 2021. What was being initiated for you specifically in the Pisces area of your chart, right? So all of us has Pisces in our chart somewhere. Even if you have no planets in Pisces, you have a house that contains Pisces that speaks to certain life themes, right? And so for me, for example, Pisces is in my 7th house. So the themes that it triggers are one-to-one relationships, mostly. So everybody has Pisces in their chart somewhere. This full moon will illuminate that area of the chart. And something is coming to pass there. Something is culminating there that most likely, in some ways at least, was initiated back in mid-March for you. And this may be, like I said, it may be an internal process that's been going on as well. So think about that. Try to take some time. Like, Pisces works best when they have space and not a lot of, I shouldn't say not a lot of structure, not too much structure, right? But on the downside, not enough structure can lead to the dispersing of energy in all directions and like not really getting anything concrete done, right? That's where the Virgo energy comes in. It's this perfect balance. So think about, you know, what began for you back in mid-March, what's culminating now, and be mindful and gentle with yourself, right? If you're feeling particularly sensitive, particularly emotional, then try to take a step back. Like I was saying, Pisces needs their space. Try to take a bit of a time out. If you can do something that's a little bit more, or a little bit less structured, if you can, you know, watch movies or listen to music, or do some art, or take a soak in a salt bath, or you know, have a good cry, get some extra rest if you can, comfort yourself with some warm liquids, you know, anything like that is helpful. So let's take it through the signs, and we will begin in this case with Pisces, and we're talking about listening to your rising sign first and foremost in these general forecasts, right? And you can also listen to your sun and your moon signs as well. So we'll begin with Pisces, because Pisces, this is your full moon, and it is happening, if you're a Pisces rising, in your first house of self, right? The first house signifies us, our physical incarnation, our physical body, our appearance, our character, our how we project ourselves out into the world, how the world perceives us, this kind of thing, right, is our first house. And so, as I always say to you, when things transpire in the first house, it can have a kind of almost an overall impact on our lives, because it is directly related to us. So for you, Pisces, Pisces rising, this full moon is illuminating something for you. It may be revealing something. It may be some kind of a crisis point, or a something, you know, the fruits of your labor are blooming in relation to something that you started, or something that was initiated by you, or, you know, by the universe, that has to do with your physical being, your physical vitality and wellness, your appearance, the way you are perceived by the world, the way you come at the world. Those kinds of things are what we're talking about here, right? So it could be that you began something, you know, maybe you went on a bit of a self-improvement kick back in the spring, and you're seeing the results, or you're starting to see the results of that now, right? In your vitality, in your appearance, those sorts of things. It could be that you made a decision that maybe, you know, you were going to be a different person, or you're going to come at the world differently in some ways. And so after some time, you're starting to see that come to fruition, come to pass. This may even be, quite simply, something about you is revealed, right? Is illuminated. So quite literally, and it could be something that was even hidden from your own kind of consciousness or view, or something that was not obvious to other people now becomes obvious as well. So that's what's going on for you, Pisces. We're going to move to Aquarius now, where Aquarius, we've got this full moon culminating in your second house, right? So for you, Aquarius, think back a couple of weeks, kind of what got off the ground, but more notably back in mid-March of 2021. What was being started then? What was being initiated? What was being conceived of in relation to your resources, your personal resources? So your finances, right? Your money, how you make your money, how you get your basic needs met. I also see resources as your time and energy. And the second house can speak to like what you value, you know, what you place worth on, and your sense of self-worth as well. So what's been going on these last 6 months in that department? And now you can see something's coming to light here, potentially. There is something that is being revealed, illuminated. There may be some sort of emotional catharsis that occurs around these themes for you, around the Pisces full moon. There's a bearing of fruit. There's some sort of a release or a turning point, right? That's happening in relation to those second house themes. So, I mean, this could be all kinds of things. This could be you made a decision to start making money differently, or maybe, you know, start a side gig, or maybe you made some kind of an investment, or there was something around your personal resources and what you value that was initiated, and now you're seeing the fruits of that, or it's reaching a crisis point, or something is being revealed to you about that, right? So like I mentioned a couple of examples already, but it's really, you know, we don't often think of money as being something that like money is like, you know, it's material, it's practical, right? We use it to get our needs met. But there's a lot of emotional baggage that we can have around money and resources as well. And so this full moon may reveal something around that for you. You know, that may be coming to light, you know, or coming into your own consciousness even. So you know, and there may be, Virgo may be there reminding you about, you know, being practical maybe with your money, or how you get your needs met, or your resources, those kinds of things. So I'm going to leave that there for you, Aquarius. Always more to say, you know, but listen to the introduction as always for the context. And we're going to move on to Capricorn now, where Capricorn, for you, the full moon is culminating in your third house. Okay, so this is about what transpires in your immediate environment. It speaks to themes like the people that you surround yourself with on the day-to-day, or that you're in close contact with regularly. So this can be people like siblings, cousins, your community members, you know, your neighbors, your friends that feel like family, your peers, those kinds of things, right? Or those kinds of people. This can be about short trips that you take, short distance travel. It can be about education in some way. It can be about your communications, right? Your daily exchanges back and forth, the thoughts and ideas swirling around in your head, or the messages exchanged, you know, verbally or otherwise. So this is third house themes, Capricorn. And so back in mid-March of 2021, something was initiated here in the same area of the chart. And there's something coming to pass now in relation to that. There is something being revealed. Something is being illuminated. Something may be bearing fruit. There may be reaching a turning point. It may feel like a bit of an emotional catharsis, or emotionally sensitive in some way. And so this can be things like communications with siblings or other people in your, like I said, immediate environment, right? Community members, close friends that feel like family, those kinds of things. This can be something around education that was initiated back in March and is now, you know, coming to pass, or is now, you know, more is being revealed about that. This can even be something like a communication that you may even have forgotten at this point. 6 months is a long time to remember something, you know, that may have been initiated back then, or there may have been some sort of exchange with somebody back then. There's a revisitation of that. And it may be like it may be revelatory in some way. Like I said, like it may be revelatory information that's coming to you, or that's internal, right? Like an illuminated kind of thought, like an aha moment, so to speak. That happens for you around this time. This could even be like some short trips that you take around now, or a short jaunt somewhere that is of a more kind of romantic nature. That could be Pisces, or that has to do with creativity in some way, or imagination, or the arts, and it could be something that was maybe planned back even 2 weeks ago at that new moon, but maybe even as far back as, the first inklings around mid-March of last year. So those are some thoughts and ideas to ponder around this full moon for you, Capricorn. Listen to the introduction for all the context, right? And the different pieces of the puzzle at play here. So we're going to move on to Sagittarius now. Sag, for you, this full moon is illuminating your 4th house of your roots, of your home, your family, your place of living, real estate, your emotional security. And so, there is something going on here that might feel emotionally sensitive. This is Pisces after all. There may be an emotional catharsis that happens around these issues, or at home, or in relation to family and family connections. Something was initiated back in mid-March, maybe just the first inklings of something, the first seeds planted. And now, 6 months later at this full moon in Pisces, the same sign that new moon was in, is revealing something, right? There is something bearing fruit here. There may be a turning point. Something is revealed, released, illuminated for you in relation to those 4th house themes that I mentioned. This could be all kinds of things. This could be something in relation to your home, like quite literally, right? Where you live, that was initiated back then, and that's now bearing fruit or being revealed in some way, or there could be a bit of a crisis moment or a turning point. There could be something that began that involved family members in some way that is now reaching this point of, again, culmination and release and revelation at the time of this full moon. So I think that's really enough to go on. I don't want to belabor it. If you listen to the introduction, you will get further insight and context, definitely. But that's for you, Sagittarius. And we're going to move to Scorpio now, where Scorpio, for you, the full moon's illuminating your 5th house. So, excuse me. I have a sip of my cold tea. So, something got off the ground, Scorpio. Something was initiated, some seeds were planted back in mid-March, around the time of the new moon in Pisces, mid-March of 2021. And whatever that was involved 5th house themes of potentially children, creative projects, your self-expression, how you have fun in life, what sparks joy for you, what brings you pleasure, those sorts of things and themes. Maybe even sports, sometimes that's 5th house. Maybe even gambling, sometimes that's 5th house, right? Gaming, that kind of thing. And so whatever this was is reaching this point of revelation, right? Something's being revealed. Something's coming to a culmination. a bearing of fruit, a natural kind of turning point, a crisis moment, an emotional catharsis, right? It is a Pisces full moon. It can be quite sensitive and emotional. And it's revolving around these fifth house themes, like I mentioned to you. And so it could be something happening for your kids. Maybe something started back then in March and for one of your kids, and it's now being illuminated, whatever that was, or there may be some like revelation around whatever that is, right? It could be something in relation to pleasure pursuits, what brings you joy, that you may have planted the first seeds in relation to back in March, like got an inkling about that or an idea, set the ball rolling. And now 6 months later, here we are at the Pisces full moon, and whatever that is could be coming to pass now, right? Changes in how you have fun, or an actual event that you had planned on or initiated, or the thought was sparked, is now coming to pass. Yeah, like this whole idea of, I don't know why, but this image of the lanternfish, like I mentioned in the introduction, keeps coming to mind. And as a Scorpio, right, you're those deep, dark waters. And so that image really speaks to what may be transpiring for you. And it can be, a light shone in the dark corners. Remember, the sun is illuminating the face of the moon fully at the time of a full moon. So something in relation to those fifth house themes is being revealed, right, at this time. So keep your eyes on that, Scorpio. So I'd love to know, if you have any stories to share or anecdotes, or if you have any questions, put those in the comments, definitely. We're going to move on to Libra now. So Libra, for you, this full moon in Pisces is illuminating your sixth house of your daily work, of, the tasks you do on the day-to-day, paid or unpaid. That could be through your job, or, through what you do at home, and how you are of service even. It can have to do very much with your health matters, health and illness, those kinds of themes. Can have to do with pets in the sixth house. The sixth house is like, it's the house of, like I say, the daily grind of toil, of what we have to do, of checking off the ticky boxes that may not always feel all that rewarding on the surface, kind of thing. But it's necessary work nonetheless, right? And so that's what the sixth house speaks to. And so back in mid-March of 2021, something got off the ground in relation to these themes. Something was planted, something was initiated, something was conceived of. And now 6 months later, whatever that is for you is bearing fruit, or there is something around that being revealed or illuminated. There's a turning point. There may be an emotional catharsis that goes on around that, right? And so this could be things like, things like maybe a health scenario that was creeping up, or something relating to health and illness was initiated, or the first inklings of that. And now 6 months later, there could be an aha moment that happens, even like a literal kind of diagnosis, or a turning point, or an emotional release around that in some way. This can be revolving around your daily work. Like I said, something that got off the ground back then, that was just beginning, that is now bearing fruit, or something's being revealed, right? Or if pets are a major factor in your life, this could revolve around the theme of pets for you as well. So, think about that and what's going on in your own life. Reflect back to the spring, mid-March of 2021, to get a sense of what's on the horizon in terms of this full moon that's happening on the 20th of September for all of us. So I'm going to leave that there for you, Libra. I'm going to move on to Virgo now, where Virgo, this full moon is culminating in your 7th house. So this is a full moon where you are looking at the themes of one-to-one relationships. That's the main signification of the 7th house, right? It is the people that we are in sort of one-to-one personal relationships with. That can be significant others, that can be business partners, that can be close friends and family members. It can be rivals. It can be the 7th house can be a house that speaks to like contractual obligations or contracts and agreements in some way as well. So those are the themes being highlighted for you. And this can be an emotional time because Pisces moon is sensitive and emotional and deeply feeling, right? So it can be an emotional time in relationships. There can be some emotional catharsis around things that have been going on in relationship for the last sort of 6 months or so. But there can also be something revealed to you, in relation to those themes. There can be a bearing of fruit, like something got off the ground, something was initiated back in mid-March at the new moon in Pisces, which was March 13th of 2021. And now at this point, when we're reaching the full moon, whatever that is being fully illuminated, right? Fully revealed. And so that's what's going on there. And it could be, when we're talking about the 7th house, it could even be something that's going on for your partner. Something is revealed to your partner, right? Even, or that involves your partner in some way. There's a revelation of sorts, or an illumination, or a turning point, or a bearing of fruit, or something like that that's going on for your partner in relation to what was started around 6 months ago. So, that could be all kinds of different things. You will know best based on what's going on in your own life currently and over the last 6 months in relation to those 7th house themes. So keep that in mind. Listen to the intro for all those added details and pieces of the puzzle. And let me know how this plays out for you. The sun is in your sign at this time, right? So you're playing a role in this full moon energy in some way, shape, or form, Virgo. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to move to Leo now. So Leo, for you, we've got the full moon culminating in your 8th house. So, excuse me. So way back in mid-March of 2021, something was instigated, something was initiated, some seeds were planted. You conceived of something in relation to 8th house matters. So this can be things like other people's money and resources, other people's time, energy. Oftentimes has to do with money. So this can be things like investments. It could be your partner's income. It could be taxes, inheritance, debt, loans, insurance, mortgages, bursaries, these kinds of things, right? The 8th house speaks to the cycle of death and rebirth. It speaks to our deep psyche and the things that are, the skeletons in the closet sort of thing. Our intimate connections. Ultimately, as I like to say, the 8th house speaks to our entanglements with other people. So something transpired in relation to these themes. Oftentimes, I see in the 8th house, and I have a lot of 8th house energy in my chart. There tends to be a lot that goes on around, taxes and that kind of quite literal thing. But then in a more esoteric way or a more psychological way, it can also be about our psychological entanglements with other people as well, not just our monetary entanglements or our entanglements that involve resources. It can involve our internal resources as well. So back in mid-March, something got off the ground there, right? And now has reached at this point, at the time of the full moon in Pisces on the 20th of September, this point of culmination. Something's bearing fruit. There is a turning point. There is an illumination. There is potentially an emotional catharsis. Something is revealed around these themes. So, oh my goodness, this could be something that's been going on with your partner's income. This could be an insurance claim that got off the ground back then that now is bearing fruit, or you're finding out like what's the outcome of that. This could be some kind of negotiation that's been happening around an inheritance in some way. This could be some kind of psychological work that's been going on for you that was potentially initiated about 6 months ago, and there may have been like maybe some therapy or some kind of something brewing, right, on an internal level, and regarding your, like I said, your internal resources, so to speak, that's now coming to pass. That's coming again, reaching this point where it's being illuminated or revealed in some way, right, coming to the surface, if you will. So that's what's going on for you, Leo. And listen to the introduction for the whole picture, for the context, right? And what's leading up to this full moon. And I will move on now to Cancer. And for you, Cancer, you got the full moon transpiring here in your 9th house. So this brings about themes of expanding your horizons, which can happen in all kinds of ways, right? But that's sort of the container that holds the ninth house significations is this idea of expanding our horizons. And so this can be about what you learn, what you teach, what you come to know through your interactions with people who are different from you, like foreign people and places, foreign cultures, long distance travel, where we have new experiences, learning something new through a course of study, through books, through watching documentaries, through a teacher in some way, shape, or form, through a certain kind of school of thought, philosophy, that sort of thing, right? It's how we view the world. Is very much our 9th house. Okay, so for you, back in March, mid-March of 2021, there were some seeds planted in this area of your chart. There was something initiated there. There was a spark, right? There was potentially just like an initial thought, or even an initial action, or an initial piece of information or idea or intention or whatever, revolving around these 9th house themes. And that could have come from you, or it could have come externally, right, into your awareness as well. And so now at this point where we have the full moon in this same area of the chart, the same house, in Pisces, whatever this was or is reaching a point where things are revealed to you. There's an illumination. There could be a turning point, an emotional catharsis. Something is being released, or something is bearing fruit, right, in relation to those 9th house themes. So a couple of just real quick, simple examples could be that back in March, you were conceiving of some kind of travel or trip that you might want to take, and now that is coming to pass, or there is something revealed around that, or something being illuminated, or some kind of emotional release that's happening around that. It could be something that you started to learn, back then, that's now again being there's this sense of like illumination around that at this point in time. Something in the educational realm even, something involving some sort of philosophy that you hold, right? Is being like something's being illuminated around that. So those are some ideas there for you to ponder, and a time frame for you to look at to get a better sense of what this is stirring up for you, right? And please listen to the intro so that you get the overall context and the pieces of the puzzle that are also leading up to this full moon. And I would love to hear your experience. If you want to share that in the comments, or if you have any questions, that would be great. Okay, so we're going to move on to Gemini now. Gemini, for you, the full moon in Pisces is culminating in your 10th house. So this speaks to your public life in many ways. It speaks to this idea of legacy, the legacy you wish to leave, whereas the 4th house is the legacy we inherit sort of thing. The 10th house is the legacy we wish to leave behind, right? And so it can speak to our career, our worldly ambitions, our sense of kind of calling in the world. It can speak to our relationship to authority and authority figures as well in the 10th house, and even our own authority, right? So back in March of 2021, in mid-March, we had a new moon on the 13th specifically, but think back to mid-March. And at that time, there was something conceived of, something initiated, something that was, some seeds were planted. The first spark kind of was lit, in relation to these 10th house themes that I spoke about. And now, 6 months later, it's whatever this is there's a big reveal that's happening. There is an illumination here. There's an aha moment. There's a crisis point. There's a turning point. There's a catharsis or a release or something that's happening, that's being revealed. There's some news or something around that. So, you will know what this is personally for you if you think about those themes in that time frame. But it could be things like a career change, that was conceived of back in March, that's now becoming public, perhaps. Or it could be something around an authority figure in your life. It could be, or your own sense of authority. It could be something around your public persona, your public image, your public reputation, how you're seen, out there in the big wide world, that has been kind of brewing and growing over these last 6 months. And there's some kind of revelation. I mean, it could be like a public revelation in some way, it could be an emotional turning point around things like career, or legacy, like I said. So those are some things for you to contemplate, and filter through your own personal, experience for what's going on for you. And definitely listen to the introduction so that you get the wider context and you can kind of see what's coming, between now and the full moon as well. So, okay, I'm going to leave that for you, Gemini. We're going to move to Taurus now. So Taurus, for you, this full moon in Pisces is culminating in your 11th house on September 20th. So, and oftentimes with the full moon, we kind of really feel the height of it a little bit before the actual moment of the full moon, right? A day or two before. So that may be the case for you. But nevertheless, this revolves around themes of the group, of friendship groups, of organizations, clubs, associations, that you're connected with and are involved with or want to be involved with in some way. It could be online communities and networks. It can be... the 11th house speaks to our allies and our supporters. and our hopes and dreams for the future, right? Our vision for our future. And so, and the people that can support us with that. And so for you, right, this is where this is happening. And back in mid-March of 2021, around the 13th of March, we had a new moon in the same area of the sky. And so something was initiated there for you. Something got off the ground. There was the first spark of an idea, or the first seeds planted, you know, that involve these themes that I was just speaking about. And now 6 months later, at the full moon, whatever this is reaching fullness. It's reaching, there may be some kind of revelation around this, some kind of turning point, or even an emotional catharsis, a feeling of release, a feeling of something is, you're seeing it in the full light of day kind of thing. Some sort of bearing of fruit of something that was initiated back then 6 months ago. So think about, you know, what's been going on for you in that area of life in the last 6 months and what that might be about for you. This could be things like, you know, a friendship that was initiated back then is reaching this kind of turning point, or there's something emotional maybe revealed around this friendship, or some kind of a group that you've been that you started yourself, or you became part of, some kind of group that was initiated back in March, you know, is now ready to level up, or something transpires around the group where there's a turning point or a crisis, or again something is revealed. It could be something around, you know, that like a future vision that you had, that now you're starting to see that bearing fruit in some way, or reaching this emotional point, this emotional turning point, you know, around the time of this full moon. There may be some news that comes in because of this Mercury trine Jupiter situation we have going on that involves the group, right, in some way, or that involves supporters or allies in some way for you. So those are all possibilities, Taurus. You know your own life best. So think about what's been going on for you, and listen to the introduction for greater context right here, so that you kind of have all the pieces of the puzzle. And I will leave you with that, and I will move to last but not least in this particular video, Aries. So Aries, for you, this full moon is culminating in your 12th house, which is a house that has to do with kind of what goes on behind closed doors, literally or figuratively, right? So in our unconscious, you know, things that are kind of brewing below the surface. And these include things like our self-sabotaging behaviors, right? That we may be, like, these may be coping mechanisms that are allowing us to cope with things that we don't want to come to the surface potentially. Or this can be things like, you know, 12th house can be quite literally like how we spend time in solitude and isolation, or how we spend time in repose, you know, like even on vacation, in relaxation mode. Our downtime is the 12th house, but it's also our recovery time, or our recuperation time, or our time of convalescence. You know, it could be quite literally about real world places that are tucked away from our everyday kind of lives, like hospitals and healthcare facilities and spiritual retreat centers and prisons and rehab facilities, and all these kinds of places as well can play a role. The 12th house is the end of the road. It's about endings and losses, and that state of things before something new begins, right? So all that to say, that back in March, mid-March of 2021, something was initiated here. Something was conceived of. The first spark was Sept. There was like an intention set maybe by you or by the universe, right? And now over the last 6 months, that's been growing. And here we are at the full moon in Pisces on September 20th, where that is revealed somehow. There may be a revelation around these 12th house themes, a secret that is revealed. There may be something could come to you through a dream when we're talking about the 12th house too. Something around your spiritual life can be revealed, or something is bearing fruit here, or reaching a release point or a turning point, or there can be some sort of, emotional catharsis that happens in private, because this is the 12th house. It is, there could be, like, I'm trying to get a little more practical here. Like, there could be like something was initiated around okay, like, I'm gonna get real with you here, and I'm not saying that this is like every Aries rising person. I'm just saying this is a potential, a possibility. It could be a thought of like, maybe I need to go off on retreat, or maybe I need to go to rehab for a problem that I'm having, or maybe I need to go get some help, check myself in somewhere, and to deal with some kind of an issue or self-sabotaging behavior. And now that's coming to pass, or there's a catharsis around that in some way. Or there was a loss 6 months ago that you suffered, and now there is this turning point, or something is revealed around that in some way, shape, or form. So, I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I could give you to go on. There could be something that's been going on that you're unaware of that is being revealed to you around this time as well. An illumination in the 12th house can be quite literally like somebody turned the lights on, and you're seeing things that you never, you weren't aware of before, kind of thing. There could be a turning point in terms of, somebody that may be involved in one of these kind of facilities that we talked about as well. So I think that's enough to go on, Aries. There could be like a spiritual crisis even. Sorry, I just thought of that. Or there could be a real, there could be a dream that just allows you to really do a lot of emotional releasing that happens as well, or some kind of spiritual process that allows for that. Okay, so that is all 12 signs. And, listen to the intro definitely, because if you don't, you kind of miss the crux of the conversation. And I hope this was helpful to you. Please let me know in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. And I will catch you soon. All right, take care and bye for now.